Oh, snap. Welcome to Race Talk Show. There's your virtual big brother, Ray Collazo. If you were on, thank you so much for joining us. If you feel like you're on we help people that feel like they're just on the crossroads of life. They're doing fine. They're very grateful, but they just feel like they see a path down the road and they're just wondering, there's something calling me to do something even greater and get out of this cage and just fly. You've come to the right place. Through personal development, career growth, and online platform building, the Race Talk Show community is here for you. This is your virtual big brother, Ray Collazo, and this is such a special, historic, in my mind, edition of Race Talk Show because we're interviewing someone that not only has brought so much to the Race Talk Show community, but indeed someone that is literally the reason I'm on Blab because he introduced me to Blab platform. Among many monikers nowadays, the Snapchat guru, Carlos Gil. Welcome to Race Talk Show, brother.
Hey, what's happening, Ray? It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And we're going to find out more about Carlos in a second. And really, he's going to not only his incredible personal journey, which inspires me as well. And there's lots of synergies with our paths, but also not only the latest trends in social media, the latest on his epic Snapchat rant today, which is the buzz in the social media world today. And, just his thoughts about kind of where this is all going in terms of not only social media for personal branding, but for business, no doubt about it. And if we're talking about social media, we're talking about technology, we're talking about, going to bring on one of our other friends here. We're talking about content. We're talking about where this is headed. Who else but the content correspondent for Race Talk Show and my Dominican brother, Danilo Rodriguez. D-Rod, welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, brother? How you been, man? I'm doing great.
Good. Hello,
Liza.
Yeah, that's right. Well. That's right. And of course, we couldn't have a show with Carlos Gil and talk about Snapchat, but not only the Princesa of Snapchat, a.k.a. Zoe Saldana 2.0, Lisa Santos. Welcome back to Race Talk Show, my friend.
I know. It's been so long. But it's good to be here. Good topic. I'm excited about it.
I know you are. So, Carlos, just want to, and again, we really thank everyone in the Blab community. And for those listening to the podcast version of the show, we started as a podcast and we'll always be podcasters here at the Corazon. And again, appreciate everyone joining in whatever version you're watching the show. For those not familiar with Carlos, where you've been, you've been hiding. This man is a virtual storyteller and senior social media marketing executive that, amongst many monikers, is the head of global social media for BMC Software and hosts both the Social 545 and Hustle Culture podcast brand, which is where I got to know Carlos, and is the lead of the YoCarlos.com brand, and has a Udemy course that if you're going to do anything on Snapchat on a personal and business level, you have to check out his Udemy course, which he's going to talk about in a second, which he co-produced with Saba, who's also joined us in the chat room as well. Thank you again, Saba, for being with us. So, Carlos Gil, welcome again to Race Talk Show. Thank you so much.
I gotta say, Ray, you have to be the best hype man in the business, brother.
Well, dog, this ain't basic cable, homie. We come from the streets. This is how we do it. Appreciate you, brother. But I'm pretty good at it. But I'm only the second best hype man in my own family, because for the true hip hop heads out there, if you know about the Army of the Pharaohs, Jedi Mind Tricks, that click, my brother's Planetary from Outer Space. So we get it. He's number one on that tip in the family. But Carlos, we're going to get into, obviously, we're people just want to pick your brain about Snapchat. Danilo, I know, has some questions about kind of the content game and social media, but I want to really start with the beginning, because that's really, your story alone is incredible. Carlos, before you were recognized by many outlets as one of the top influencers in social media and social media market out there, that's not where this journey began for you. So, Carlos Gil, where did this journey begin for you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So it's great to be here with all of you guys, because we have a lot of Latinos here in the room. And, I think one thing that's overlooked often is diversity in marketing, diversity in corporate America. And, I'm really proud of my roots, man. So for me, my journey started in South Florida. I was born outside Miami in Fort Lauderdale. And I started my career at a very young age, man. One thing that a lot of people don't know about me is I dropped out of high school at 17. And it was one of those things that I was really ashamed about. I didn't want to talk about it, in my younger years. And as I've grown up, so to speak, it's something I really embrace, man, because I think the journey is extremely important. So Dropped out of high school at 17, got my GED, and I was given an opportunity by Citigroup to go work for them at age 19, and worked in banking for about 6 years, had various different positions at different companies, and wound up losing my job at the age of 25 due to the recession. The economy took a tumble for the worst. And like a lot of people, man, I was out of work. I didn't have any options. I didn't have an education to fall back on. There wasn't this thing called social media like we know it today that existed. We're talking 2008. So using technologies like LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook back then was virtually unheard of. You know, pretty much networking was who you knew in person or who you went to school with, who you grew up with. So the day that I lost my job, I joined LinkedIn at the advice of my mom, ironically. And from there, really my life changed because I realized, wow, there's actually a platform that can help me not only brand myself, but it can also help me connect with people. It can help me connect with potential recruiters at companies. It can help me connect with potential prospects for business. And knowing that I wasn't going to get a job in banking anytime soon because of the recession and what was going on in terms of the banking and finance industry, I decided to start up a business, and that business was Jobs Direct USA, which was a staffing firm. And for 3 years, I leveraged social media really at its infancy stage. I studied how to use Twitter, how to use Facebook, how to use LinkedIn. I really growth hacked these platforms to be able to connect with people and do honestly what brands today are doing. You know, in 2009, 2010, I was doing what every single brand today is doing, which is using social media for brand awareness, for lead and demand generation. And, you know, really I attribute my success as an entrepreneur to relationships, something I talk about a lot today. And it was because of those relationships that I made. It was because of the goodwill that I did for others that companies in 2010, 11 started reaching out to me to help them with social recruiting. Because again, let's face it, social media was still something that was relatively new back then. So after working with several companies on helping them use social media to find job candidates, Winn-Dixie, which is a supermarket chain based in the Southeast in Florida, where I lived at the time, they ended up offering me a job to go work for them and start social media. And man, for me, that was like the rebirth of my career. Actually, it's honestly where I like to tell people my career started. I'm giving you guys the background to give you some context, but my career in brand marketing started in early 2012 as a result of what I did during the recession, which honestly, man, I was working in a bedroom in my house, like where I'm at right here, and really turning nothing into something.
Carlos, you know, I know so many people can appreciate that part, that message, because a lot of us don't have the standard path to success, especially the kind of success that you've had. And I can imagine on a personal level, and I believe that you were also a young family man when you were at that sort of crossroads in your life. And, you know, being, you know, Cubans, they're supposed to be broke too. You know, there's a lot of cultural stuff to it because I'm sure there's a lot of pressure to be successful and do your thing. So Carlos, when you were at sort of that point, that crisis point on a career level, what gave you the strength to make something out of nothing?
Well, you know, you mentioned family, and at the time that I lost my job back in 2008, my wife was 8 months pregnant at the time, and there was just no option, man. It was, you know, my dad's always told me in life you have two options. You can either go north or go south. So going south was not an option. Failing my family was not an option. The only option I had was I have to find a way, even if I go broke in the process, I have to find a way to do something to provide for my family. And honestly, man, like there was really tough times that I endured and I was able to overcome them. I'm able to humbly tell the story here today. But if there's a reason why I'm as passionate as people hear me speak about social media, whether it's Snapchat or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it might be, it's because I'm honestly living proof and testament that you can leverage these tools and use them for greater good. You can use them to rebrand yourself. If you're looking for work, you can use them to grow a business. These are things that I've done. So again, it's, you know, not just walking the walk and talking the talk, but it's actually putting it into motion and showing people this is how you do it. And, you know, I got knock on wood, man, I've been very blessed, and I'm fortunate that I can look back 8 years later and tell this story because, dude, there was times, man, where forget not knowing where my next paycheck was going to come from. I just didn't even know if I was even going to be able to get through those tough times. Real talk.
Wow, man. That's, again, really appreciate your candor. And I know we've all been there on some level. And Really appreciate your leadership and letting people know. So you see people in social media, and one of the things that I think really has helped your success, Carlos, is your candor and your honesty and your transparency, and saying, look, I don't have it all figured out, but you have to kind of grow together. One of the things you said, Carlos, which I wanted you to touch on, them and allow give Danilo and Leysa an opportunity to chime in on this conversation, is sort of the power of relationships. I think oftentimes we, particularly from our diverse communities, we don't realize the power of the network that we already have. Mm-hmm. And can you talk about that? Because I just think about kind of just the energy and the amount of people that we're touching just in this initial conversation with the several dozen people that have joined us online and the hundreds that'll listen to it later on in different formats. So you mentioned that, but can you talk a little bit more about that, sort of how you were able to kind of leverage those relationships and sort of build them in an authentic way for everyone to kind of move forward together?
Yeah, man. I have a fundamental belief that relationships are at the center of our universe. We are born because of a relationship. And in life, ultimately, you depend on other people to help open up doors for you. So again, this is 2008, 2009. Jacksonville, Florida is where I lived. I was starting up a young company in Jobs Direct USA. And I had a mission, which was to help people find jobs. I had no background whatsoever working in recruiting. I had no formal experience in marketing. All I knew was I could use these mediums to go ahead and somehow help people find jobs. So I joined LinkedIn groups. I was aggressively all over Twitter, trying to link up with recruiters and companies that were hiring. And what I did was I was creating these events called pink slip parties, which were essentially free networking events for recruiters and job seekers to go to. So I did this for about a year and I made no money. Like in 1 year, I blew through all my savings, all my 401k that I had. No money, sold all my stocks. It was all gone. And what I learned by this is if you do enough social good for people, it will come repay you tenfold. Because what happened in that year that I spent touring the state of Florida, touring the country, going and doing these events for free for people, was the people that I helped ultimately find jobs were the ones that as soon as they landed a job, they thought about who was there to help them at their lowest point. Because let's think about it. When you're at your lowest point, it's when you're most vulnerable. And it's when you truly think and appreciate the people that help you, the people lending helping hand. Like we've all been there. Let's face it. How many friends turn their back on you when times get tough? How many people in your own family turn their back on you when times get tough? So it was these same people that found jobs because of my events that as soon as they were in a position that they could refer me, they thought about myself and Jobs Direct USA, and they thought about who was there to help them out. So in years 2 and 3, I didn't have to make another sales call ever again because it was those relationships that I invested in. And it's so powerful. So many people think that getting on social media is as easy as just connecting with people and expect dollars to funnel in. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. You need to identify the right people that you want to do business with. You need to engage them and truly add value and not even think about money being the end game, because not everyone that you transact with, and what I mean about transact is not everyone that you engage with, it's not always going to turn into a relationship where there's dollars exchanged. But there's things like referrals. There's word of mouth. You never know who holds the keys to your success. So it's extremely important for anyone listening to this right now or on the replay just to keep that in mind. You always got to be building. You always got to be knocking on doors, because at some point you are going to depend on people to help open them up for you.
I definitely got to get one of our fellow hustlers in this conversation, Danilo. Let me tell you, Carlos, with this guy's story. I mean, this guy was messing around, finding ways to get Wall Street internships when he was in high school. This guy, he was a true hustler. And Danilo, I know Carlos's story resonates with you as well.
Absolutely. I think that, and there's a lot that you sort of learn along the way. But one of the things that I knew early on, just given the fact of where I grew up, and where we came from, was that I wasn't gonna walk in through the front door at any place that I was gonna try and get into. So you had to make your entrance somewhere, right? And that sort of led to sort of this reliance on yourself and this resourcefulness that you can come up with in order to make things happen for yourself. You know, that's definitely the way that I got into Columbia. You know, it's definitely the way that I got into Wall Street. Definitely the way that I got into Columbia Business School and into the media world. You know, it was just figuring out the way. You know, you if you have a goal and you're like, you know, I remember the first time I got on Columbia's campus, I was like, this is where I want to go to college. And I was like, how the heck am I going to do that? It was just like, you know, I was, you know, I didn't have, you know, it wasn't like it was going to come easy for me. So, you know, I looked up programs. This is before the internet, you know, so I went and got a book. You know, I went on Columbia's campus. I saw that there was a program called the Discovery Program. It was you know, run by Columbia students. You know, you get to know the people there. You get to know the students, and know the faculty. You get to know the administrators. You know, and then you know you learn that they have a program called HEOP. You know, that's for underrepresented minorities in college. And you apply through that program, and you know, I was lucky enough to get in. So it sort of just, you got to scratch, you know, below the surface. You got to go deep. Like Carlos said, you got to trust yourself. You got to have that faith that you can do it, you know, and you got to have the people behind you rooting for you, and you know, people helping you out and you helping everybody else out. You know, this is not a one-way street. And that's, you know, that's the way that I, you know, I have a young family as well. And one of the principles that we have as a family is we are of service. You're of service without asking anything else in return. You be of service. So, you know, I'm totally right there with you, bro. That's how you get your hustle on. That's how you make things work for yourself. And I implore people to do that, because the world has changed and there aren't really a lot of opportunities in going in a traditional fashion. So, you know, I
definitely wanted to get Leysa in this conversation. Leysa, one of the cool things about the millennial generation that I find, as someone that's unfortunately just out of that cohort, that just by a whisker, but and your network of colleagues, is that you're very collaborative, and it is very much about you know, sort of paying it forward. So what before we get into Carlos's pick his brain on the social media expertise, what about his personal story resonates with you and your network?
I just by watching his snaps, he already knows this whole idea of like a hustle. Since my senior year in college, I worked a full-time job. I was taking 6 classes. I was doing an internship, and I think that kind of carried on to as soon as I graduated. I work a 9-to-5 now, and I still have 2 side hustles. So knowing that I have to keep working, and I have to keep collaborating, and I have to keep finding my way into building my experience with other people. And then you get Carlos coming in. He's 1 second, he's like piping you up. He's a hype man. You want to talk about a hype man? You watch Carlos on Snapchat.
He was my friend first, girl. All right, who do introduce you to Carlos? All right.
I'm like, so it was like one day I literally went out to the bar. I came home from the bar and I was working. Like I worked till 4 o'clock in the morning. And I feel like for young millennials like myself, in some instances, we have to prove ourselves. Because a lot of the times when I was in college, my professor would tell me, everybody's going to think that you believe that everything needs to be handed to you. And that's the last thing I want people to think, that everything needs to be handed to me on a silver platter. My dad didn't come into this country with that idea. He always taught us, always made sure to instill in us that if you never want somebody to say that they got that for you. You want to be able to say that you got that for yourself, or that you worked with other people to get to where you are. So, I mean, look, every single time I watch Carlos's Snapchats, I'm like, all right, I got this today. I'm a little beat up. I'm a little tired, but I got this. I mean, I've been up since 5:30 in the morning, and I'm still here on this podcast, you know. So, I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
Lisa does her thing. She's quite this emerging social media influencer herself. So definitely want to make sure that Carlos and Lisa continue to collaborate. Carlos, before we get into
I appreciate the kind words.
No, please.
A lot.
Absolutely. So no doubt. So before we get into, because I know people either have questions, I know Danilo and Lisa definitely want to pick your brain a little bit about the social media landscape. But the last piece on your personal journey, I did want you to note briefly is, you know, man, you made a big transition from living the life in Florida to being part of the Silicon Valley community. And, you know, we'll have to bring you back just to go through that whole process, which is incredible, which included stops at LinkedIn and other amazing companies. But just a word on that process, people in our community are so fascinated by, I mean, look, we all know we over-index. I mean, we just social media. I mean, that's our thing. And you know,
can I just say something?
For too many of us, it's a mystery. Yes, brother.
I think we need more diversity here in Silicon Valley, guys. Real talk. You know, I've been out here for a year now, and I'll say, you know, it's pretty cool going out and being unique, being the only Carlos in the room, especially, you know, we're in South Florida. There's a lot of me out there, but at the same time, man, it's a reality. We gotta be doing something. Our culture has to be doing something to motivate kids that when they graduate school to come out here to California and get involved in the tech scene or create your own tech scene in your own backyard.
That's right. So for those, and who knows, maybe they're part of this blab, who knows? But for those that may be thinking about it or just, you know, just talk to us about, you know, any words of advice or just any thoughts about your journey as you establish yourself out there.
Yeah, you know what? So, yeah, I've worked for 4 different companies now, leading social media, and man, the journey. The best way for me to compare it is paid education. It's like a paid MBA to go work for companies, apply what I learned as an entrepreneur working for myself, and you know, the journey never stops. You know, like you, is it Liza or Lisa? Lisa. I hate to pronounce people's names. I hate to mispronounce people's names.
Okay, it's that Dominican thing, you know.
Especially the celebrities. You don't want to mess that up.
but you know what? You know, same thing. You know, I work a job. I'm always working. I balance a family, you know, wife and daughter. And, you know, it's great. It's what keeps me sharp. It's what keeps me alive. I think if I were to come home from work and turn on TV and watch Game of Thrones every night, I probably wouldn't be the same person that you see me on Snapchat all the time.
That's right. And before we get into the social media conversation, Carlos, I want to remind people that Carlos and his colleague Saba have just released recently, just a must for social media marketers or people that are going to be utilizing Snapchat in a significant way. So definitely plug, before we get to the next segment, Carlos, the Udemy course and anything else related to what you're doing you'd like to mention at this in this break.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually 2 things. You know, you touched on it. My co-host Saba and I from Social 545, we recently launched a Snapchat for Beginners course. You can access that by going to udemy.com/Snapchat course. You can also go to udemy.com/Snapchat help. Yes, Saba just posted it here in the chat. And we actually have a coupon available for anyone that signs up. Enter in Social 545, and we have a discount code. And the other exciting resource that Saba and I have created is Snapchat.directory. So let's face it, when you get on Snapchat, one of the hardest things is building your network. I hear it almost every single day from friends of mine. So we've solved that, and we've created a resource where you can go on. It's completely free, Snapchat.directory, and you can go on, enter in your username. By entering your username, it adds you to a directory, a list that continues to grow. We have almost 6,000 Snapchat users in this directory. And what we've heard from people is just they've gotten on and they've been able to add dozens, if not hundreds, of new followers on Snapchat. So 2 cool projects, again, the Snapchat for Beginners course on Udemy, as well as Snapchat.directory.
Awesome. And again, I want to thank the people watching live on Blab, Saba, Jose, Ramirez TV, Paul, the Game Shack, Donna, Albert, a lot of great people watching. So really appreciate your time on a Thursday evening. So Carlos, you're the man when it comes to social media. Not only to help people kind of as you're thinking about building their personal brands, and as you shared on Snapchat today, you know, Snapchat is sort of giving you a rebirth in your own personal brand as an outlet for for people to get to know who you are in a unique way. And also for companies to get paid. I mean, you're about the bottom line as well. So for those that maybe are just just maybe dabble in social media casually or for, kind of, but haven't really figured out where it fits into either brand building or commerce? Give us a sense of kind of where to begin, kind of conceptually thinking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way I classify Snapchat is it's Twitter meets YouTube. What I mean by that is that it is short form storytelling, short form content. So you have mixed in shorter content, which is your Twitter, your 140 characters. In this case, it's telling a story in photo or video 10 seconds at a time or less. So that's the easiest way that I can relate Snapchat to existing social networks. Now, I want to say I've been on Snapchat for 3 years now. I joined at the end of 2013. But over the last year, my activity in Snapchat's really taken off because you have more people that are gravitating to it. And to be completely transparent with you, when I joined Snapchat, it was my way not only to get away from brands, but it was my outlet to really be myself. Because let's face it, we're always on. When we work in marketing, when we work in brands, we are always on. Like there is no Facebook, there is no separation between LinkedIn and Facebook anymore, or Facebook and Twitter. It's all the same thing. You're connecting to the same people, which is fine because there's nothing wrong with interacting on more interpersonal level with people that are in your business network. But where do you really go just to let your hair loose and be yourself? And for me, that has been Snapchat, continues to be Snapchat. And I tell you what, brother, my best content I've put out in years on social media is like what you saw today on Snapchat. Because I feel, you know what, I'm relaxed. The numbers on here are only relevant to me. There's no pressure to over deliver because there's not these vanity metrics of retweets or likes. So when you're much more relaxed, you're much more confident. And when you're much more confident, you're able to create better content, which, dude, is not something that just applies for people, it applies for brands as well. Okay. And that's one of the things I was trying to say today. You've got a lot of marketers that are rushing to slam Snapchat. And quite frankly, I think they're making a monumental mistake because numbers don't lie, man. You've got over 60% of millennials in the U.S. that are smartphone users on Snapchat. This is a demographic that is going to outspend baby boomers by 2017. So for anyone sitting out there thinking, how do I grow and scale my business? Not just now, but long term, you've got to be on the platforms where these folks are engaging. And let's face it, Snapchat might go away 3 to 5 years from now, and it might be something else. But you always have to be evolving. And the best example I can use is Blockbuster. Look where Blockbuster is today. And at one point, they were this giant in the video rental and home entertainment space. And today they don't exist. So what's that tell you about evolution? You always got to be looking for ways to grow and evolve. And, I'm really high on Snapchat right now, but I'll be the first person saying I am platform agnostic because these platforms can change like that in an instant. And what really matters at the core is your network. So I know by building a relationship with all three of you in these squares, if Snapchat goes away tomorrow, we're still going to be able to be friends on the next platform that comes out and the next one after that.
That's right. And Shawnee Yala in the chat room, we got a lot of people that are into it. He says Snapchat equals relationship building. Jose Ramirez TV, one of my definitely glad he's here as well. Says he loves it. Twitter meets YouTube. Loves your quote there, Carlos. So before we get to Danilo and Lace's questions, because they want to nerd out on Snapchat, no doubt about it, I want to ask you, and I'm sure we'll touch on other elements of sort of your epic rant about these marketers hating on Snapchat. Do you think that part of the mental hurdle for marketers, or I'll just say it, people that aren't millennials, is that the very initial brand or perception was that it was essentially a sexting tool for kids, kind of thing. I mean, that was kind of some of the initial perceptions that it had, and it just had this very sort of teenage chat kind of element to it. So what do you think is what do you think is this mental hurdle for marketers and people that are either Gen Xers and above?
I don't think it's the fact that Snapchat used to have a reputation of being a tool for sexting. I don't think it's the mantra that Snapchat is for kids. I honestly believe it's marketers being lazy and not wanting to invest the time on learning something new at the end of the day.
Let's be real about that. That's exactly what it is.
Let's face it, like everyone loves Facebook, everyone loves Twitter. It's easy to use now. But guys, like 8 years ago, when everyone was talking about Facebook being where advertising was going to go to. It was, oh, no. Don't take away my direct mail. Don't take away my TV radio. Don't take away my billboards. And, everything changed. Like I said, you always got to be evolving.
That's right.
Everybody's like, we were just getting used to Instagram. Now we got another platform. So, yeah.
Jose Ramirez on the chat said it best. Llegamos los abuelitos a Snapchat. So, yeah, because they took over Facebook. That's why all their grandchildren have run away and gone to Snapchat and Instagram. But that's another conversation. Danilo, let's start with you. I know, you follow these trends and sort of the evolution of content fascinates you. So jump into this conversation, brother.
Sure. I mean, I guess my big question about Snapchat and sort of the big brands, which now or recently they now have their page, their way to be found, which is not an organic way. They have to pay for it. Is that, I guess the question is discovery a problem for them? Like if you can't afford the 30,000 or whatever it is that it costs to get your little, button on or your story button on that main page, is that one of the main hurdles for them? It's not as organic as, say, Facebook, where you can just put up your page, people can find your page, or Twitter, where people can find your handle, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I'm going to be completely frank with you. Promoting your Snapchat content is no different than what you're doing already on other social media networks. Cross promote. And this is something I talk about often. If you have a presence on Facebook and Twitter, if you have an email list, if you have a CRM database, you have to cross promote. You have to use Snapchat as a platform where you create organic content. And then you use these other networks and say, hey, check out our story today. One of the things that I've done is I've printed these stickers with my Snapchat code. And what I do is when I find a community board at like a Starbucks, I'll go ahead and put it on there because it's exposure. So if you're a small business and you have a brick and mortar location, you can stick your Snapchat code right next to the decal for the Chamber of Commerce, or you can put it on your menus. You can put it at your counter. There's so many use cases, but here's what I've just been saying to marketers over and over. It's just a new platform, but the tactics are what you've already been doing. You just need to look at it as modifying just a little bit because the user interface is slightly different. But if you've already been creating content on these other mediums, Snapchat's no different. It's just understanding the mechanics.
Got you. Lisa, jump into this conversation. I know, you two are arguably my two favorite people to follow on Snapchat. Lisa, I think you have a career in Hollywood. You have such a dramatic flair for your snaps. So definitely jump in, and I know you have some thoughts about this.
I kind of wanted to talk about one thing that I've been seeing. I follow a lot of brands on on Snapchat, and one question I wanted to ask you, Carlos. I kind of posed a question on Twitter at one point, but I'm seeing a lot of brands sort of get into this mode of being lazy and using third-party apps to kind of upload their content on Snapchat. My whole problem with that is Snapchat was kind of created as a platform of restrictions, and those restrictions kind of give you the ability to be creative, and you should use that to the best of your ability. And I kind of wanted to see what your opinion is on that, when brands kind of, or just people kind of upload content on a third-party site. It just makes me so, because it's so low quality. You can tell that they didn't really take the time to use Snapchat's full capability to kind of create content, and it bothers me so much.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I am not a big fan of third-party apps. At my job, we use enterprise software to manage social media because we're a big company and we have a lot of different accounts. But on a personal level, to this day, you won't find me using a Hootsuite or any of these tools. For me, it's all using the platforms natively, the way that they're intended to be used. By doing so, it sharpens your IQ in terms of how you use these platforms, because you have to find ways to stretch the limits. You have to find ways to work within the system. And again, it goes back to my comment around lazy marketing. Anyone can go ahead and use a third-party tool and take content that's already been professionally designed and upload it to Snapchat. Anyone can do that. You can do it. I can do it. But really being a master of the domain is playing within the boundaries. And like I said, there's times where you got to stretch the limits, but know how to work within the boundaries of the platform that you're on. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Snapchat actually has a very strict terms of service. They will give you 3 strikes and ultimately ban you and delete your account if you are caught breaking their rules. And, part of their terms of service is third-party apps. It's something that they are very much against. So when I speak about Snapchat, when I do trainings on it, I'm very clear and let folks know. I know it's tempting because there's some cool apps that you can use to upload photos already on your phone and videos already on your phone to your story, but use Facebook for that purpose. Use Snapchat to actually create native organic content.
And I mean, you can do that if you follow Harris. I forgot his last name is
Markowitz.
Yes, Markowitz. He does a great job with creating native content, and you would think that the content is uploaded on a third-party site, but it's really not. You can kind of see the behind the scenes on his A Serial production Snapchat account and how they kind of create that content on Snapchat without even third-party uploading it. But I mean, it can be done. It's just people don't do it. People don't take the time to figure it out.
Yeah, Saba brings up a good point. He does his homework and executes correctly, and that's the name of the game. There's no overnight success. You're not going to master a platform and grow a network overnight. It takes time. And, again, it goes back to my earlier statement. A lot of folks, they just want to half-ass it and be lazy and not put in the time that requires.
Yeah, no, before we get to some of the questions in the chat, and there's a lot of, we really appreciate people's passions. A lot of great conversation going on in the chat box. Just want to thank some great members of the Blab community who are just watching the show. Jeremy, Anthony Conklin, who brought Tony Robbins to Blab.
That was very historic. Did that, by the way. Props to Anthony, who I know is watching this. I was sitting in my office, and I got this huge rush, man, to just conquer the world after seeing Tony Robbins.
Yeah, no, and that's been a floodgate. We've seen other celebrities and other thought leaders appear on Blab, but Anthony really sort of set that trend off. Carlos Phoenix, our homie, which I believe moved back to New York City, so great to see him back in the Northeast. And Lane and others have joined us here on the show and Race Talk Show. Carlos has a question, which I think we sort of answered. Want to make sure your thoughts on this, Carlos, and the rest of the panel. Are marketers waiting for one platform to die to focus on yet another platform? We sort of answered that, but Carlos, I mean, kind of where do you see sort of the marketing world? It's interesting. I'll say from this perspective that when I went to Hispanicize last year, and I'll actually be speaking there again on podcasting, it was amazing how much I was ahead, or in our community was ahead of the Latino marketing gurus just on podcasting, which I thought was kind of a simple thing. But so there's definitely a lot of lazy marketing going on out there. So just, I don't know, Carlos, if you had any thoughts about that.
I think there's going to be a market correction happening in social media sooner than we know it. I think there's an oversaturation of tools. There's an oversaturation of platforms. There's an oversaturation of content. And let's face it, audiences are starting to be much more fragmented than ever before because there's more options. And quite frankly, I look at tools like Slack, which Slack at the core is not a social network, but it has the capabilities of social connection and interacting. So I look at platforms like that and even WhatsApp as disruptors, where people eventually are going to say, you know what? I don't want everything to be documented online. I don't want everything to stick around. I've got my tribe, so to speak. I've got 25 to 30 people that I connect with on an ongoing basis. Instead of us putting everything out in the open, let's have a Slack channel or a Slack group where we can go ahead and still chat and stay in touch. And honestly, I do this already through direct message on Twitter. I'm involved in a lot of different direct message groups. I'm involved in a lot of groups on Facebook, which are private. They're roped off. I call them VIP groups of social media. It's like the VIP section of the club. And I think that's where we're headed, man. So, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but if I had to make a educated guess, I would say, there will be social networks that eventually die off. And I don't think marketers are necessarily clamoring for it, but I do think that they are in their comfort zone, so to speak, with where they're at today, and much more resistant to change.
Yeah, Mauricio. What a wonderful way of spelling, saying that name. I'm not totally clear on the question, but basically, you see it here, Carlos. Basically, if how much should I interpret this question as how much should you focus on YouTube, regardless of how successful you've been on either Snapchat, Instagram, or Twitter?
Awesome question. YouTube is one of those channels that's often overlooked, not only by social media marketers, but by marketers in general. Hey, guys, YouTube's owned by Google. It's the second most searched site online. And do this as a test. Upload a video to YouTube and then immediately Google the title, and you will see that video will be indexed almost instantly by Google. But here's the key to success is the content that you put. So it all goes back to the same. If you're creating bad content, then even if you have a presence on YouTube, you're not going to get a flood of subscribers or views. You really, at the core, have to take a step back and think, why am I on social media in the first place? So that's the number one question that anyone should answer. What is my purpose for being here? Number two, who am I trying to serve? Who's the audience I'm trying to reach? Number three, how am I going to reach them? What platforms are they on? And then ultimately, what content are you going to put in front of these people? If you cannot answer those questions, then whether it's YouTube, Snapchat, Twitter, what have you, you should not be playing in the sandbox.
Absolutely, Carlos. Sean Ayala, again, a great snapper himself, and someone to follow on social media, asks, do you think Carlos' business can use Snapchat on its own without a social media presence on other platforms?
It would be interesting if someone did that, but absolutely. I think if you already have a database of customers or prospects, if you have access to people that you can reach, you can absolutely be on Snapchat without having a presence anywhere else. Even if you don't, if you have access to people one way or another, and you can say, add me on Snapchat, if you can build a community, if you get people to validate for you, you don't have to be anywhere else.
Carlos, I wanted to ask you. I'm sure we have a lot of hustlers that are part of this community, and a lot of them, they're not social media gurus. They're realtors. They're DJs on the weekend. They have other types of small businesses, and Snapchat's just another thing. And also, maybe depending on their age group, they feel like it's not for them for whatever reason. So for someone that has a small business, a hustler themselves. I mean, besides getting your Udemy course, which is the real answer, but give us a nugget on kind of how they should be approaching Snapchat and what's
first step. Obviously, is you download the app, sign up. Once you are on the app, go to add friends, and then click add from address book or directory. So Snapchat has a built-in feature that it will crawl the address book on your iPhone, and it will immediately identify who from your address book is on Snapchat. Do that. You will quickly discover that people that you are friends with or people that you are connected to are already on Snapchat. It's the quickest and easiest and honestly funnest way to just immerse and jump into the platform and start having conversations with people.
Lisa, I'm curious, and definitely jump into this conversation. I'm curious because, I mean, Lisa, besides being a friend and a colleague, I mean, you really are an incredible snapper. I mean, you come up with these small films. It's really entertaining stuff. How do you see it fitting into your? I see the content you're producing, but how do you see it fitting into your personal brand? I mean, these videos are really giving the type of video you produce on Snapchat is really showing a whole completely side of you in terms of your personality. So I'm curious, how do you see it building your personal brand as a social media marketer and PR specialist?
So I hate to call myself a PR specialist, but I mean, my personal brand, when it comes down to it, it's kind of evolved in a sense. I started off wanting to be kind of like this full professional PR person, didn't want to exactly talk about anything that was, or post anything that kind of showed, I guess, myself in a more, personal way. And when I started seeing that my personal brand kind of evolved and I was more seeing myself as a content creator and not necessarily a PR person in that sense, I started to understand that I needed to be more personable. I needed to kind of figure out a way to kind of show myself to others so I can be more relatable, if that makes sense. So when I got on Snapchat, I didn't understand. I was like, why the hell do I need to be on it? There's no reason for me to be on it. Everybody's talking about it. So I got on it, and one of the first people I watched was Frankie Greek. And she has her Snapchat is kind of like this whole vlogger type of style that she's kind of created. And you get to see a different side of her. And just like Carlos mentioned, you get to understand somebody differently. And other than it being on Twitter, on Facebook, anything else, I can go on Snapchat without makeup on and kind of talk to the people that I'm talking to from all over the world and be okay with that, and talk about social media, talk about what's ever happening throughout my day. And people find that I'm personable. People say, hey, you're really cool. I didn't think that you were that funny, or I didn't think that I can do Snapchat like that, or I didn't think that now I can use what you're doing or creating a story on my own personal stuff. So for my own personal brand, Snapchat has kind of helped me be a little bit more relatable. It helped me be personable. It helped me kind of just to be creative. Like I mentioned before, Snapchat is a platform of restrictions. And I'm always waking up the next day thinking, what kind of story can I create today? What's something interesting about my day that I can share with my viewers, that I can share them at a different angle than everybody else is sharing it. I watch my entire feed every single morning, all the people that I follow, and I figure out what can I do that's different from what everybody else is doing on Snapchat, on my feed right now, and I create something different. So I mean, for my personal brand, Snapchat is the way to go. But for brands especially, it kind of helps. It gives the viewer the ability to just kind of connect with the brand. ColourPop does this amazingly. When there was a big problem with ColourPop sort of having an issue with their orders not going out. So they went on Snapchat and kind of took the viewer behind the scenes of their corporation and what they were doing to kind of bring the viewer into the industry, and for telling them, hey, your orders are going out, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing. And it kind of humanized them. So it wasn't sort of a brand that everybody was still mad at. Why is my orders not coming out? Why are you guys not responding to us? But they were going on Snapchat and they were talking to us and letting us know, hey, this is what's happening. We're very sorry. Give us a chance. Tell us what, connect with us, send us a DM, swipe up if you want to chat with us, so that we can kind of talk about it so you're not so mad at us about not sending your orders out. So I feel like Snapchat should be best utilized to kind of humanize your brand so that you're more relatable to the audience. And I think that's what Snapchat has done to my personal brand in general.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, do you have another question for Carlos?
I do have one. I know that we talked a lot about how much Snapchat is a win, but what is one thing that you can honestly say is not a win for Snapchat? What is a big challenge for Snapchat?
Wow.
Because I feel like everybody talks about, oh, Snapchat is awesome with this, Snapchat is awesome with that. You know what I mean? What is a challenge? What is not a win for Snapchat, if you can find one?
Gosh, that's a really tough question. You got me there. Let me think through, what do I say? Shit, I wish Snapchat would do better.
I stumped Carlos.
I think it would be cool if you could have groups. Or actually, I got it, because this happened today. So I went on my rant today and I had a bunch of people respond back to me. So I would like for people to be able to respond to me with video as opposed to text. So you could obviously send me a video snap, but when you're watching my feed and you're texting me, you're replying, you're leaving a comment, it would be nice if that person could also respond in video. So that's one of the things that did come to mind today. It's not one of those things that I think like, oh, wow, like Snapchat sucks because they don't have that. But the other thing is also groups. So there's a lot of people that I connect with. There's different pockets, different tribes, if you will. It would be nice if we could all communicate within a group. And I'm sure it's something that at some point is going to be on the roadmap for the folks over at Snapchat.
Yeah.
And that's been part of the Blab community conversation, right, Carlos, about, them eventually having a feature where you could have private Blabs and private conversations. Danilo, jump in this conversation. I know that, do you have any final conversation questions for Carlos related to Snapchat and the content game?
Yeah, I was just finding it a little bit hard to hear Liza's conversation, so I'm sorry for being a little bit silent there. I mean, having roots in content.
It's cutting out, Danilo. So maybe
I'm sort of
you might want to type it.
Can you hear me? Is that?
You're a little better now. Yeah, try to get your question in. It was slowing up on us.
Yeah. So it's just amazing how content companies kind of look at these platforms as foreign in a sense, where at the end of the day, it's content, and what you're trying to do is get an emotion across to another person. And the way that you do that is different on the platform, but essentially it's the same emotion that you're trying to get through. So I'm not sure, Carlos, if you have any thoughts on these platforms and how content is used on these platforms to kind of get that either emotion or reaction. People call it engagement.
I think, you really got to analyze the psychology of Snapchat, and that's the fact that content disappears. It forces the end user to come back within a rolling 24-hour period. So, whether the content that you're putting out as a brand is resonating with someone on an emotional level or not, you should always be putting out content that is aimed to resonate with your audience. As a marketer, you know your audience better than someone like myself does. So speaking just from experience, at one point I ran social media for a supermarket chain. I knew that the majority of our audience in social media was females between the age of 35 to 55. So content that was important for them, or that still is important for that brand to reach their audience, is things like recipes, showing people how to do things. I think in social media, you always want to put out content that makes people's lives easier. We talk a lot about adding value. That seems to be a big buzzword. But I think if you're a brand, show people how your product, how your company, how your brand should be a part of their life, how it makes their life better, how it makes their life easier. If you're able to do that successful, people will keep wanting to come back and see more. And I think Snapchat really provides that stickiness factor because of the content disappearing after 24 hours.
And Carlos Phoenix puts in the chat, it's basically the importance of measuring results, and we're in sort of the beginning stages of this. Carlos, I know you're very passionate about the commercial benefit of Snapchat. Just any other thoughts you may have on that, Carlos, about sort of what brands may be missing as it relates to developing a relationship with their audience on Snapchat?
Well, I tell you what, driving results is extremely important for any marketer, any executive, or any business owner out there. So there are things that you can do. For example, if you have a .com, if you have an e-commerce business and you can accept coupon codes, you can have codes exclusive for those that watch you on Snapchat. People that watch you on Snapchat can then go to your website. They can use those codes, redeem it to buy product. Now you have a way that you can actually measure actual dollars and cents ROI. So for everyone that automatically discredits Snapchat and says, oh, this isn't a platform that you can use to buy, guess again, you absolutely can. But it goes back to one thing that I said earlier, which is you have to know how to work within the user interface. You got to learn how to work within the rules, so to speak. And brands that start getting it early on are the ones that are going to have, over a period of time, much more success, because again, it's not slowing down. You've got more people jumping on, you have more buzz, more interest. Again, driving results at the heart of the matter is why brands are engaging on social media. It's why they market, but don't lose sight on community. And that's one of the biggest opportunities that Snapchat specifically provides. It's an opportunity for you to intimately engage your community. And when I mean intimately, it's not just putting out cool content, it's actually having conversations. And I said this actually today on my rant on Snapchat, was no different than that you have a community manager monitoring Facebook or Twitter today. You can also have a community manager monitor what people are saying to you on Snapchat and have dialogue with them. The only difference is that dialogue isn't going to be seen by hundreds of thousands or millions of people. It's going to be seen in a much more intimate environment, which is one-on-one. And you want that. You want your customers to feel that you really value them, because if you're able to build loyalty with customers today, then you're going to have an advocate for life.
That's wonderful. And before we get to Danilo and Lace's final thoughts or questions as we wrap this up, and again, for people watching on Blab, I'll stay as long as people want, but I want to respect Carlos's time. So, we're going to wrap up the formal taping of the show in a moment. But I want to make sure we have a few minutes to talk about his Udemy course and anything else Carlos wants to promote. I know he's going down to South by Southwest, and he's got other speaking engagements coming up and other projects with Saba and Teo and other colleagues of his that I want to make sure he has a chance to share with us. But curious, Carlos, what you think about Blab? Kind of where do you think it fits in the landscape, and kind of how do you see it fitting into, where do you see its place in the mix?
Yeah, I think Blab's a good, platform for a couple things. One, for content creation. You can use this content we're recording here tonight and put it on YouTube. You can put it on iTunes. Both of my podcasts were originated because of Blab shows. I look at other things like from a PR standpoint, customer service, HR, recruiting. There's so many use cases for Blab. And, I think by actually having folks like us adopt the platform, we essentially become the advocates. We become the messengers. And, I constantly am telling others in my network to get on Blab. The company I work for, BMC Software, we use Blab as a way to create content that otherwise would be created in a very close-knit environment. You got brands like Experian that are on Blab on a weekly basis. So I think it's still a very young platform. We have probably a much longer path to go before we see, wide adoption by brands. But I definitely think this is a useful platform.
Awesome. And I'm a Blab evangelizer, and I shared sort of before we started taping that I really have to thank Carlos, because I discovered Blab by listening to the Hustle Culture podcast, which if you got to check that out amongst many Carlos's platforms and projects. The Hustle Culture podcast with his homie Teo Roxon is a really good show, and I listened to it. I began listening to it as a podcast, and he mentioned, we're on Blab and we can see each other. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And it really meant a lot to me, Carlos, because I must say that I've been podcasting for almost 3 years now, and have even had small networks, podcast networks of some different genres. I founded Latino Sports Talk last year, and we had kind of gone through we were going through a tough patch, the team, and this kind of gave my brand a rebirth to be able to have a platform to kind of see each other, engage people like you. So I want to thank you for helping me discover Blab. Danilo, as we wrap this up, I know, these kind of conversations are always of interest to you. You're always thinking about the intersectionalities of technology and content. And I wanted to just give you a chance to share any final thoughts and let people know where they can find you on social media.
I'm on Twitter at DRODRIG1. I would do my lower third, but let's see. I'm gonna put it on right here.
I'm not mad at you, Play. Don't worry about it. Nice, very nice, very very nice. Good for you.
All right, there you go.
Very
I don't know if people got that. That was great. But it is interesting. There is a content explosion. There is, brands are coming on, like wildfire. I don't know if consumers have reached their peak content consumption. So it's an interesting balance, and I think Carlos touched on this. That there are more and more brands coming on and figuring out this content marketing piece and how that plays into their company, their brand, and how you engage as a company with consumers online on these platforms with content. it's yet to be seen, but it's definitely growing like wildfire right now, and it's a good time to be doing this in this space. It's great.
Yeah, no, and definitely thank you, Danilo, for helping us out today. Have this conversation with Carlos, and for those interested in virtual reality, Carlos, Danilo led a conversation we had on the show a few weeks ago about where virtual reality its place in the content game, and so that was a very interesting conversation. So folks can check out Ray's podcast replays on Blab and check out that episode. Thank you again, brother. Always great to have you on here, Danilo. And Lisa, you, as always, you bring it. You've added so much to this conversation, Lisa. So I want to make sure you have a moment to share any other thoughts you have for Carlos and let people know where they can find you on social media. And if you're not following Lisa on Snapchat, it's like you're not on Snapchat. So definitely want to follow her on Snap. Lisa? I guess Lisa can't hear us.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Carlos, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Lisa, if you're having a technical problem. But well, Carlos, please let people know about the Udemy course and anything else you want to share. I can't wait. I just haven't had a chance to take it, but I'm definitely going to take it soon and let people know about this great project you and Saba have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So Snapchat for Beginners is a online course that Saba and I created. You can go to udemy.com/Snapchat course. I'll drop a link here in the chat, and be sure to enter code social545 for a discount on that. Also, check out Snapchat.directory. It is an online community. We have over 6,000 Snapchat users in this directory. You can go on there, add your name. It takes less than 30 seconds to do. And, guys, visit yocarlos.com. It has all my links on there for all my social networks. My door is always open. There's also a contact us form there, or contact me form, I should say. So check it out. Drop me a note. And any way that can help you or anyone in the community out, I am here to be of assistance.
That is awesome, Carlos. And one of our homies asked what you thought about Udemy. That's a whole other conversation, but
that's a whole other conversation for another day.
No doubt. So we'd love to have it, but we gotta, we want to respect Carlos's time. Carlos, any other projects or speaking appearances you wanted to shout out here on the show?
Yeah, I'm going to be at South by Southwest next week. I am going to be speaking, ironically, I'm going to be speaking about how to use social media for personal branding in finding a job. So if you're going to be out South by Southwest, be sure to hit me up and find me. I'm also going to be at Social Media Marketing World, which is coming up next month in San Diego. Nice. It's a huge event.
Congratulations. For
marketers. Thank you. Appreciate it. Second year that I go out there and speak, and I'll also be speaking on the topic of Snapchat. And if you can't make it out to those, I'll also be speaking at Social Media Day in San Diego as well. So looking forward to linking up with anyone out there in person.
Yeah. Carlos, have you ever spoken to Hispanicize?
I would love to speak at Hispanicize. I know Manny in passing, but if you have inroads there, an intro would be fantastic.
I mean, this will be the second year we've had as I tell people, podcasters at Hispanicize are like bachata in the late 80s. It was like not acknowledged the way it eventually will be, but no, he was gracious enough to give us the spot last year. I think it seems like the podcast workshop was very well received because we were invited back. So, I'll be there.
Cool.
Want to give a shout out to our homie Calixto Chinchilla, who, for those film buffs, is the founder of the New York Latino International Film Festival. Who's now running the film wing of Hispanicize, very similar to how South by Southwest has a film component. So Calixto will be on talking about that in the next few weeks on the show. Again, Carlos, thank you, brother. Appreciate you. We're going to promote your Udemy course and all the projects you're involved in. Shout out to Saba. She's not only an excellent blab and podcast host with you and the other shows she does. She's a great person to follow on Snapchat as well, and she brings a lot to the community. And your homie Teo, we got to get Teo on here.
Absolutely.
To talk more about the hustle soon. So thanks again, brother. Thanks so much. And thank you all for watching. This has been a combination of the Race Talk community and Carlos's tribe, JD and Donna and everybody else. It's been great energy, great conversation on the side. So thank you again for watching Race Talk Show and listening to Race Podcast, and have a fantastic day.